Hello everybody, my name is Jan Gustafsson and this is my review of the chess year 2016, if that's how you call it. We shall look back at some of the highlights of the year, and there were plenty. We had a candidates tournament, we had a world championship match, we had a chess Olympiad, but I'll try to go more or less chronologically as long as my spotty memory allows me to, and talk about some of the main protagonists along the way. So let's start in January with the Tata Steel Masters in Vikensee, won by Magnus Carlsen, and maybe foreshadowing events to come. His main rival in the tournament was Fabiano Caruana, who had to win in the last round with the black pieces in order to catch Magnus, but he took a lot of risk and in the end went down, lost his game to Yevgeny Tomaszewski, therefore finished in second place. For Fabiano Caruana, that would be an unpleasant deja vu situation soon, because a while later, the biggest tournament of the year, if we don't count the World Championship match, the Candidates Tournament took place. And there, going into the last round, Caruana found himself in the same position. He was tied with Sergei Karjakin, but Karjakin had the better tiebreaker. Therefore, Caruana had to try to win with the black pieces. Probably you do know the outcome. If you haven't, if you lived under a rock chess-wise in 2016, you followed too much politics, not enough chess, you might have missed this, so I'll briefly show you. After queen to d2, it's black to move. Caruana had played a very sharp Sicilian, very sharp position, still on the board, but here he went for the natural move rook to e4 to cover his b4 pawn, allowing a beautiful combination, which Sergei Karjakin spotted. Starts with the move rook takes d5, sacrificing a whole rook. E takes d5, queen takes d5, threatening queen to d7, checkmate. It turns out it's very, very hard for black to defend against these checkmate threats. For example, rook d8 runs into queen f7, checked. Caruana played queen c7 instead, but Karjakin followed up with a very strong quiet move, queen to f5, this time around threatening queen h7. There's nothing black can do about it. Caruana tried rook f7, but after takes, things ended quickly, and after rook d8 check, he had to resign because of king takes f7, queen h7, king e6, queen d7, checkmate. And that meant that Sergei Karjakin qualified for the World Championship match against Magnus Carlsen. However, before the World Championship match, there was still a lot of chess to be played. We shall look at some of the highlights along the way. For example, they played a super tournament in Norway, the Altibox Norway Chess Tournament in Stavanger, where I had the honor to do commentary together with Peter Svidler. And amongst other things, we witnessed the game Carlsen versus Vladimir Kramnik, which in my opinion featured the novelty of the year. I haven't really done a lot of research, so I'm sure there's other very worthy candidates, but this novelty played by Carlsen against Vladimir Kramnik certainly was a strong contender to me, and it messed up my plans a bit, because I was planning to not only play this line that Kramnik played in the game, but even to make it a stronghold in my repertoire series for black against 1d4. This line where black accepts double pawns, but gets or so I thought at the time, a very solid endgame with the two bishops. Black had been doing well here. It's been a part of the repertoire of great players like Kramnik, Anand, I believe Andreikin played it a lot. So I thought black was doing fine, but Carlsen posed a very, very serious challenge to that line in this game with a strong new idea, knight to e2, tending to just go knight g3 and knight to f5. And I've checked this quite a bit at home. I couldn't really find anything I liked for black. Kramnik over the board, faced with his new idea, also could not find anything good. Went down quickly here after knight gf5, little trick, because knight takes b2, king c2. Black can't keep everything together. For example, king b3 wins material. Carlsen achieved his perfect configuration and went on to win quite effortlessly. He also went on to win the tournament ahead of Levan Aronian. Was the first time that Magnus Carlsen did win his home tournament, Norway Chess. And this is going to be a bit of a recurring theme. I wasn't sure if we should call Carlsen one of the winners or one of the more disappointed guys of 2016, because I only looked at the rating list. But if you go through the year, he's won pretty much every classical tournament that he's played. So sometimes it feels like we might be demanding too much of Mr. Carlsen. Little subplot here. Vladimir Kramnik, who had a great year himself, but he had a little stretch where he lost 7 consecutive games to Magnus Carlsen, believe it or not. That is counting Blitz and Rapid games. But if you don't believe me, look it up. Magnus was really doing a lot of damage against Vladimir Kramnik in a very short stretch. And this game in Norway Chess was a part of it. What event shall we jump to next? Maybe another super tournament. Since we're on the theme of Magnus winning super tournaments, he also won the Bilbao super tournament where, wow, tasteful illustration here by our man Guadalupe, who did all these great cartoons, where he bulldozed through the field and defeated Wesley So, which was a fateful game in some sense, because I believe it's the last game that Wesley So would lose in the year 2016. We will have a brief look after a new opening idea in the evergreen Berlin. Dominated a lot of 2016, the Berlin. And what can we do against it? A lot of people start playing the Italian. A lot of people start playing goofy d4 sidelines just to avoid it. But in this game, Magnus Carlsen scored a nice victory on the white side of the Berlin. We see here that black wants to castle, but somehow he never quite finds the time. Carlsen plays a4. If black castles away now, there is the very nasty little tactic bishop to h6. This bishop can't be captured because you would lose your queen if you did. And else it's very hard to defend the g7 pawn. So you can't castle here. So played knight c5. Carlsen won queen e1. Clearly can't castle because the rook is under attack. b6, knight to d2. Once again, not a great time for castling because now after knight c4, the black position collapses because d6 is on prise. Therefore, so at least try to grab pawn after knight c4. Once again, we have troubles with running away. d6 would be dropping. And there is still this bishop h6 tactic, should you need it. Therefore, Wesley So decided to keep all his material by bishop f8, but that leaves his king in the center, and Magnus Carlsen would very quickly get to it by just developing his pieces. And in typical Carlsen style, without really any particular fireworks, he just built up a winning attack here. Wesley So had to resign shortly after because after rook ft1, the mating threats are becoming overwhelming. So another tournament victory for Magnus Carlsen in an event where Sergei Karjakin also participated, didn't get much done. I believe he scored -1. He also didn't have a great score in Vikings. In general, it was clear that Sergei Karjakin was focusing on the World Championship match, not so much on his tournament results leading up to it, while Carlsen was winning all these super tournaments. But Wesley So, the man who lost this game, would pick up the mantle of winning super tournaments in the second half of the year. And one thing that maybe foreshadowed events to come, maybe not, it's just a nice game. That's the main reason I'm including it. Also an event we should talk about is a little Blitz game against none other than Garry Kasparov, not Sergei Karjakin. Because Garry Kasparov gave a little comeback. He played a Blitz event, I believe, against the top 3 finishers of the US Chess Championship. Fabian Caruana, Hikaru Nakamura and Wesley So, which was won by Nakamura. Kasparov did very well against these young stars, but the game of the tournament was Wesley's victory against Garry Kasparov, even though I'm sure Kasparov will not be too happy with this game being shown around. However, it was spectacular, so we'll have a brief look at it. Wesley So with the white pieces here starts his initiative by sacrificing a pawn. c4 to c5, d takes c5, knight to c4, attacks the e5 pawn. Kasparov defends it by going f6, and d6 opens the position, trying to keep the black king in the center. That is what's going to happen. Knight c8, bishop to e3, developing with tempo, b6, short castles. We should never forget to develop our own pieces. Bishop c6, dc, queen c7, b4, one of the star moves, trying to open the c file before the black king gets out c takes b, rook c1, setting up all kinds of tricks against this construction. Kasparov played the very logical knight g7, covering c6 and preparing short castles, but Wesley So prevents it by going queen to b3. h6, already a sign that things haven't gone well. Rook fd1, just calmly bringing all the forces into the play. b5, desperately trying to chase this knight away, but now Wesley So strikes with a very nice combination. Knight takes e5, f takes e, bishop takes b5, using this pin, and we see all of white's pieces in attacking positions while the black king is stuck in the center. And the end was near. Rook to b8. Now, the move that impressed me the most of this whole combination, a very quiet bishop to a4. Might not be the only winning move, but it's certainly doing the job. Keeping this powerful bishop, preparing rook takes c6 and queen e6. Nothing black can do about it. So this happened, and after bishop c5, we see that white is he down a rook? But it doesn't really matter, because all his pieces are 100 times more active than the black pieces. After rook c8, bishop takes e7. Kasparov had to resign, since queen takes e7, queen takes c8, king f7, bishop b3. Not the only way to win, but this is mate next move. I believe Kasparov later compared it to a game by an old master against an amateur, and of course this doesn't happen every day. But a very nice combination by Wesley So, who after that went on to dominate the second half of the chess year, playing very, very solid chess, very, very well prepared, not taking any risks, winning, what did he win? The Sinquefield Cup, the Olympiad with Team USA. That of course is a separate storyline that at least deserves another cartoon. Here we see Team USA, of course, quite some reinforcements there with Fabiano Caruana and Wesley So, together with Hikaru Nakamura, Sam Shankland, and I believe Ray Robson was also on the team, winning the event, anchored by a superstar performance by Wesley So on board number 3. Also Fabiano Caruana, if I remember correctly, with a very, very good result on board number 1. The USA went on to win the event ahead of the surprising stars Ukraine and the Russian team. Once again, Russia not able to win the chess Olympiad. What's next? I believe the next big event is already the match, Carlsen versus Kayakin. Carlsen, by the way, played for Norway in the Olympiad, as did Kayakin for Team Russia. Kayakin with a good result in the Olympiad. Carlsen lost 5 rating points, but Norway did very, very well, finishing 5th, the best result, I would guess, in Norwegian chess history. But, of course, then the star event was about to start. The match, Magnus Carlsen versus Sergei Kayakin. I had a bit of a front seat because I was working for Magnus Carlsen, not on site in New York, but in some training camps in Kragerø in Norway. Lovely resort where his seconds were hanging out. So less commentary than usual the second half of the year for me, but of course it was a tremendous challenge and an honor to be part of Team Carlsen. And it also made the match a bit closer than I would have liked it to be, because Sergei Kayakin finished the classical portion with a 6-6 tie and was even leading for the last couple rounds, which meant that in round number 10, Magnus Carlsen... Oops, sorry. No, this is from the tiebreaks. In round number 10, Magnus Carlsen was more or less in a must-win situation with the white pieces. And this is one of the key positions that gave people working for and or rooting for Magnus Carlsen quite a bit of a scare, because here black can force a draw with knight takes f2 check, king g2, knight to h4 check. If you take queen g6, this king doesn't really have anywhere to go. Therefore, you would have to go king g1, knight h3, king h1, knight f2, with a draw, which would have meant there would only be 2 games left for Carlsen to even the scores. Not a pleasant situation. But instead, Kayakin did believe that Magnus would never allow something like that. Therefore, he didn't look for it. He was talking about this after the match, I guess. Went for the move d5, queen h5. Now there was another chance, but a more complicated one, to force a draw with knight takes f2. Once again, Kayakin took the world champion at his word And that meant that Carlsen could reach a better endgame here, which he went on to win after some adventures, but with excellent technique, evening the score, and the match was headed towards a tiebreaker for rapid games, and that one was dominated by Magnus Carlsen, who played probably the prettiest final move of any World Championship match. This is from the fourth rapid game. Magnus Carlsen was leading 2-1, so Karjakin had to take a lot of risks. But Carlsen was up to the challenge, and here he finished the job with the fantastic move Queen to H6 check. It's checkmate next move. I'm not going to show you how. You have to figure that out for yourself. But it did mean that Magnus Carlsen defended his title, even though, yeah, by the closest of margins. And Sergei Karjakin, I believe, won a lot of new fans. Not only for his chess, his resilience, his fighting spirit, but also for his demeanor and, yeah, his approach, his sportsmanship in the press conferences, and so on. So Sergei Karjakin certainly cannot be called a loser of the year 2016, especially, slight spoiler alert, because he would end the year by winning a World Championship title, the World Blitz Championship, which he won on the 30th of December. In the end, he was tight on points with Magnus Carlsen, but had the better tiebreak. So Sergei Karjakin not only fought very, very hard and came very close in the World Championship match, also won his own World Championship title in the Blitz. Therefore, I believe he will be quite happy with his year overall as well. Another man that won a World Championship title in the last days of this year is Vasily Ivanchuk, who took home the World Rapid Championship, his second World Championship title after the Blitz Championship 2008. The 47-year-old Ukrainian, with a very convincing victory, defeated Magnus Carlsen along the way. There was tied with Carlsen, but Carlsen tied for first in both Rapid and Blitz, but took home bronze and silver, and will probably be quite disappointed with that finish to the year. As I mentioned earlier, he did win every classical event he took part in. I think the only things he didn't win were these World Rapids and the Paris Grand Chess Tour, if I'm not mistaken. Speaking of the Grand Chess Tour, that one was dominated by Wesley So, who went on to win the Super Tournaments in St. Louis, the Sinquefield Cup, and in London, the London Chess Classic. So, yeah, landslide victory for Wesley So, who was clearly dominating the tournament circuit in the second half of the year. Some guys who were doing very well in the first half of the year, like Maxime Vachier-Lagrave, have the bad luck that in these yearly reviews, we tend to forget about the first half of the year and praise people who did well in the second half. One guy who did well pretty much all year round, though, is Vladimir Kramnik, who at age, how old is he? 41, 42? Is still number 3 in the world, and I wanted to briefly show you one of my favorite Kramnik games of the year, even though he didn't even win it against Rainer Buhmann, my German compatriot, played in Dortmund, a tournament won by Maxime Vachier-Lagrave during his strong streak. But this was the most spectacular game of the tournament. We're just gonna go through it without me trying to explain too much. If you want more details, I'm sure I've done a highlight video on this game. Craziness ensues. Kramnik sacrifices a piece for many, many pawns. Keeps going for the kill, sacrifices another piece. With major attack here, bishop e6, queen h7, king f7, d5, bishop f5, e6, king e8. But it turns out that e6, as natural as it is, was a mistake, and it was stronger to, I can't even remember anything. I believe it was stronger to keep the queen on the board, or bring the queen back to the center. I mean, queen h5, bishop g6, queen f3. But Kramnik went for the very natural e6, king e8, queen g7, missing the counter blow, or I don't know what he missed, at least allowing the counter blow, queen c7, threatening checkmate here, and planning to free himself by going knight takes d5. Kramnik reacted in a very violent manner. Rook h2, knight takes d5, and he gave his queen, no problem. Queen f8, king f8, rook takes d5. So white has 2 rooks and a bishop against queen, rook, bishop and knight. The position is still unclear because black is so undeveloped. His king is exposed. But it shows the new fun-loving Kramnik in a way, playing 1 e4, experimenting, sacrificing all his pieces, and it worked for him. Good year for Vladimir Kramnik. As for this game, after more crazy complications, it ended peacefully. All of a sudden, most of the pieces have disappeared and no side had enough material to work with. But amazing game by Vladimir Kramnik. And speaking of amazing games, I want to show you what I consider the move of the year in a game between Levon Aronian and Richard Rapport. Once again, disclaimer, I haven't really looked at all that many moves, I was gonna say. I'm sure there's other very worthy candidates for move of the year, but this one impressed me the most. Richard Rapport with the black pieces had, I believe, overall a good year, very up and down, but at some point reached 2,750 and he played this move in this position against Levon Aronian. I'm not sure if you've seen it or if you can think of it. I'll just show it to you and then try to explain. The move rook to h1 check. Very hard to understand even at second sight. The point is more or less, black would like to go bishop takes d4, but that runs into e takes d4, attacking the queen and attacking the knight. Now if you go knight to f3 check, the knight can just be captured either by queen or pawn, so that doesn't really work for black. After rook h1 check, if you go knight takes h1, it allows knight f3 check. Because of this pin, queen takes f3, rook takes f3, and black has a winning position. No problems there. Therefore, king takes h1 is forced. Now you take, and if white now goes e takes d4 check, you use the fact that this king is on h1, and you go queen h4 check. Didn't have that earlier. King to g1, knight to g4, and the black attack decides the game. Queen h2 is a threat. After the best rook e1, queen h2, king f1, queen g3. Black crashes through. Therefore, after king h1, bishop takes d4. Aronian could not recapture on d4. Instead he tried, I believe, what did he try? f3. But black just went back, bishop b6. And his initiative was strong enough to win the game in style. Now, I do have a chess computer that points out, chess engine we call it nowadays, that points out that rook h1 might not even be the strongest move. That knight g4 might be even stronger. But to my mind, rook h1 still the move of the year on sheer both creativity but also strength, because it is a very strong move. Criteria. Kudos to Richard Rapport. A worthy contender for this move of the year, and also two guys I haven't mentioned much yet, is the move played by Fabiano Caruana against Hikaru Nakamura in the London Chess Classic, final super tournament of the year, if we don't count the World Rapid and Blitz Championships. After a big theoretical discussion, Nakamura is a queen up against two white minor pieces. However, white can win the queen back with the move knight c6, and that's the move computers prefer. Bishop g4, knight d8, bishop d8 with an unclear endgame. But Caruana had done his homework better than Nakamura on this instance and blitzed out, or I guess he blitzed out, I think he prepared at home, the move knight to f5, saying, I don't need the queen back, I'll play with the two minor pieces, but I will dominate the situation on the board. And it's very true, if you look at this position, black has a material advantage, but he can't really do anything. White controls the whole board. Caruana went on to win the game in very good style. A couple moves later, this position was on the board and Nakamura had to resign because of a forced sequence. So a nice game by Fabiano Caruana, goes to show the quality of his homework and also his tactical sharpness, even though I don't think he was even that happy with the game. Overall, Fabiano Caruana, the most consistent player not called Magnus Carlsen in 2016. And that also shows in the rating list, which we'll have a look at in a minute. Caruana very, very close to Magnus Carlsen in that list. Let's try to bring it up. First here. Here's Guadalupe's, as usual, very tasteful illustration of Caruana's homework in this Sicilian. Now let's have a look at the rating list. We see Magnus Carlsen still number one, as he has been for the last, I don't know, 5 or 6 years. Who knows these things? Probably many people. Not me. Anyway, Magnus Carlsen still number 1, but Fabian Caruana within striking distance, only 12.5 points behind. Which might look strange, because I mentioned that Magnus won pretty much every classical event he's played, but he did lose some points in the match against Sergei Karyakin, 6-6 against a lower-rated player. That cost a lot of points, and he lost some points in the Olympiad for Norway. So, Caruana, pretty close. We'll see if Magnus can increase his lead in 2017, or if Caruana can maybe even overtake the world champion. For now, it certainly looks like Caruana is well positioned, or best positioned for the fight for number 1. Vladimir Kramnik, I've mentioned, good year for him, number 3 in the world. Wesley So, we've mentioned, fantastic second half of the year, number 4. Maxime Vachier-Lagrave, number 5, very good first half, not such great second half, even though, yeah, in his defense, he was very distracted by being my colleague on Team Carlsen, working for Magnus Carlsen during and, of course, before this World Championship match. Therefore, who knows, he might have a lot of ideas that he can use in 2017 to strike back. Vishy Anand still going strong, number 6. Sergei Karyakin, overall, very good year for him as well, I would guess. Very close World Championship match, won the Blitz World Championship, gained a lot of new fans. And then 3 guys who I would guess are more disappointed with the year. Hikaru Nakamura didn't win many things. He's still around, but disappointing candidates. And he couldn't really make his mark in many of the tournaments. He did win the Paris Grand Prix, but I believe not a lot of other things. Please correct me if I'm wrong. Feels to me like he might be disappointed. Levan Aronian has expressed his disappointment with the year 2016. So has Anish Giri, who, yeah, after his infamous 14 draws in the candidates, where I thought he played great chess, just couldn't finish the games off. Sort of, yeah, had a little crisis afterwards. Lost more games than we're used to from him. But I'm sure he's going to be back with a vengeance in 2017 as well. Jan Nepomniachtchi climbed up the ranks. Mamedyarov always around. Hare Krishna had a good year. And so on and so forth. Ivanchuk, of course, great end to the year, winning the World Rapid Championship. Well, yeah, World Rapid is correct. And Veselin Topalov, we see here, falling out of the top 20 for the first time in forever. Of course, chess not his main priority, but not a great year for him. So that is the rating list. And that was my very subjective review of the year. I'm sure I forgot many things, many players, many highlights. It's been an exciting year for me personally. My daughter is 4 months old now. We moved into a new house. And of course, the work for Magnus Carlsen was a great challenge. And yeah, bit of a distraction from talking to you guys, doing banter blitzes and commentary. So I'll be back with more of that in the year 2017. Thank you so much for sticking with us here on Chess24. Stop by for the upcoming shows. I'll be doing my banter blitzes. We'll be doing our shows on Vike and Zay. If you're watching this in 2017, Happy New Year to you. If not, what do you say then? Still Happy New Year? I don't know. I don't know the conventions. I hope you had a good holidays. I hope you'll have a great 2017. We're not going to talk much about 2016 politics because we want to end this on a high note. Let's see what 2017 brings. Thank you guys for watching and see you around. Bye.